Ian Rapoport has the Browns, believe it or not, D-Man, making 4 trades in the first round. Let me tell you something. And then they would wind up with Josh Jones when it's all said and done. If that happens, if they make 4 trades in the first round, 2 things need to happen. First, I will allow Jimmy Haslam to go into the draft room and immediately fire everybody in the room. That's number one. Number two, every season ticket holder, Browns season ticket holder, must go in on Monday morning and get your money back. You can't have 4 trades in the first round. I was beginning to think that Rapoport was just kidding around. After all, it was a mock draft. That's not funny. Browns making 4 trades in the first round. Just take who you're supposed to take.
Yeah, Les, I hear you. But in your opening comments, which again were spot on, you also mentioned Jerry Jeudy, and I had said last week that if Judy's there at 10, I'd have to think twice before I passed on him. Let's say, for example, the Browns have their tackles rated as most teams, if not all, would do. Okay, they rank each position. And let's say the first, by some crazy deal, the first 3 of their tackles are gone by the time they pick at 10. Are they going to want to settle for their 4th highest rated tackle?
I wouldn't.
I don't know. So you weigh that against Jerry Jeudy, who to me is a really, really, really good prospect at wide receiver. I'm not guaranteeing that he's going to be a transcendent star, but he has all the makings of a really good player at the NFL level who can step in right away and help you. And by the way, Les, I know people might say to me, and they said last week, "Oh, what do you mean? The Browns have Landry and Beckham." Well, that's just it. Landry's coming off a hip. Beckham's got a core. You never know what's happening with Beckham. So I don't think the Browns are absolutely settled at wide receiver by any means.
No, and let me just say this, and I've obviously you may not believe this, but I've never played offensive line in the NFL. But you've got these 4 guys, and now you're bringing in a 5th in Jones. And the question is, or the statement is, if you had 4 even before Jones, and now bring them in if you want, there's no way that each one is equal to the other. Somebody has flaws, and they all have flaws, but they don't have the same flaw. This is why you have scouts, to say, here's 4 or 5 guys, they're close, but there's a difference. You make the choice here. That's what you have to have. I can't believe that all 4 or 5 are exactly equal, and if you get one, you get the other. I don't believe it.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Les, but here's the thing. There's such a variance on each guy in terms of beauty being in the eye of the beholder. I mean, right. I literally, in doing draft research, because not only for this show, but for tomorrow, I'm on WTAM co-hosting with Mike Snyder all night tomorrow night on the draft. And I'm doing this research, and I go to one channel, and that channel is singing the praises of Mekhi Becton. I go to the next channel, and that channel's talking about Jedrick Wills Jr. being the best of the lot. I go to another one that says, how could you possibly say anybody other than Tristan Wirfs? So literally from source to source, from outlet to outlet, there's a different view of these tackles. And then you have to factor in, Les, how do they fit the scheme?
Yeah.
Okay. And in the Browns case, you've got to have the zone blocker. You've got to have I'm sure they're looking for specific things for Kevin Stefanski's offense, and they're going to make sure that whoever their tackle is a guy that can play in a Stefanski system.
All right, maybe, first of all, you're right about that whole thing, but you got 4 or 5 guys. There's no way anybody can tell me they are equal. One is as good as the other. One is as bad as the other. Somebody out there is better out of that group, and you better have the scouts who can figure that out. And I know you're not going to know for a couple of years and all that stuff, and some of the guys would have to switch right to left or guard to tackle or whatever they do, but they're not equal, and that's where you better have somebody who knows that.
Les, you know who my scout is?
Who?
Joe Thomas. I said this on previous shows. Joe Thomas should be hired by the Browns as a consultant, and I want Joe Thomas's dossier on these tackles, and he's my tiebreaker. If he says that this guy is going to work in the NFL, then I'm going to believe him. And here's another little, monkey wrench or, another issue that you have to deal with is the size, the speed, the ability to pick up the systems. And how about this? Where they come from. Because I like a guy who played at Alabama or a guy who played at Georgia.
I like a lineman who played at Iowa.
Well, and Iowa's great too. There's no doubt. But you look to certain programs to say, all right, is this guy facing high caliber competition on a weekly basis versus maybe not?